EMANDULO is an experimental online archive that houses materials concerning the Southern African past before colonialism and in the early years of colonialism. Many of these materials are otherwise very difficult to locate. EMANDULO specializes in presenting these materials in particular ways that make it possible to get beyond and behind the dense epistemological screens set in place by colonial and later epistemological practices. One of the ways that EMANDULO does this is through the digital assembly in a single, easily accessible online setting of a vast array of early materials in local African languages. Like the early accounts in isiZulu of life at uMgungundlovu, King Dingane's residence, or Magema Fuze's writings. You can find materials about Fuze in 3 different places on EMANDULO. This handy introduction to Fuze for people who are not familiar with who he is. His full archive, and here in the general repository you can quickly and easily access all sorts of texts that mention or reference Fuze. We provide a basic introduction to Fuze for those who do not know much about him and his remarkable career. Fuze was involved in and commented on the main political events of his time. The printing press symbolizes his oeuvre. He wrote and published on all the main events of his day. The generating of text in isiZulu and in English both present languaging challenges. In the isiZulu, we have to work simultaneously with Fuze's original variant of pre-standardization isiZulu, itself changing across the period of his life, as well as with the demands of the expression of 21st century academic and technical terms. In the English version, we have to find ways of eliminating the many received but inadequate translations of isiZulu terms into English. In relation to both sets of problems, we depend on the historical sensibilities and training of our generators of the texts in various languages, mostly our own postgraduate students, led by research postgrad Sizagele Gumede, who holds the FHYA languaging portfolio. In addition to the introduction, we provide a few extra resources to assist the user. One of these is our timeline, available both in English and in isiZulu. The timeline plots both the important incidents in Fuze's life and the various texts which he produced. As you can see here, one of his first texts was Amazwi Abantu, an essay about conversion and his daily life at Ekukanyeni, where he studied and worked with Kalenzo. If you click on the link, you get straight into the archive and directly to his text. Fuze published copiously in the isiZulu newspapers of his time, like this article in Nkanyiso in 1892. As you can see, the best scan of this article that we have is hard to read. So in this case, we made a typescript to help the user. Note another feature here. Users of the site can upload their own typescripts. And you can become an EMANDULO contributor. and comment on the article by Fuze, discuss tricky terms, and otherwise provide useful annotations and comments. In this way, the community of users, all of you, grow the archive. Importantly, a digital archive of this kind is never a finished project. We are able continuously to update the site and add things that you, the users, might find out there. Like this gourd, probably presented by Fuze to the Natal Museum in 1904, but only found and added to this archive a few weeks ago. The timeline takes us all the way through to 1922, to the publication of Abantu Abamnyama, and to Fuze's death later that year, on the 20th of September 1922. Another feature that I will briefly mention is a nifty research tool, the bibliogram, innovated by our ex-student, the FHYA digital bibliographer, Henry Fagan. Bibliograms help users get to grips with the conditions of production and the reshaping over time of historical materials. The bibliogram maps the networks of production in which Fuze and his texts were involved. Like the timeline, the various components of the bibliogram have live links to relevant materials in the digital archive. Here, you can get a sense of the major topics that Fuze wrote on. But you also find out about scholarship on Fuze, such as publications by Prof. Mokoena. In each case, a condensed infobite introduces the producer or the materials. But once you know a fair bit about Fuze, you will not need all these introductory tools. You'll want to get straight into the archive itself, which you can do here. As you can see, the FHYA's team of digital archivists, led by master student Debra Pryor, have arranged his materials according to where they appeared. All the articles from Ipepolo Hlanga or from Ilanga are in one place, likewise his published texts or his letters. But Fuze's archive does not sit alone on EMANDULO. It's on the same site as texts by W.W. Qoba or S.C.K. Mqai, being curated online by PhD students working on these authors, or narrations by the accomplished expositors Mashwili Gamgoi and Ndlovu Gatimuni, two of the most important leaders of Impi Yamakanda, the so-called Bambata Rebellion. So, if you're an intellectual historian who is interested in conceptual history, you can type a concept like umbuso into the EMANDULO search bar. And EMANDULO will search all the texts and many more for instances of the use of the term. And so you're going to get all sorts of results. Songs and Prayers in 1908. Notes of a Conversation in 1921. And multiple books. The term comes up in many places you would never have thought of looking for the term. All of these are carefully dated for you with plenty of background information on who the authors are and how the texts came into being. You can see immediately what a massive research breakthrough this kind of search function constitutes. If you are interested in hearing spoken dramatizations of the words of Qoba, Mashwili, and Ndlovu, and coming soon, Magema Fuze, do listen to the podcasts on EMANDULO, and to the original musical compositions inspired by their words, created by our very own Dr. Thokozani Mhlambi. So we launch the Fuze curation and we declare EMANDULO open for research and further expansion.